You've seen the names, brands that once filled marinas, lakes, and dealer lots across America. But here's what no one tells you. Some of those boats were more than just outdated. They were accidents waiting to happen. Think transoms tearing loose, stringers rotting from the inside, and wiring so bad it could start a fire. These companies disappeared, but the danger didn't. Stick around, because one of these manufacturers built boats so unstable they didn't need bad weather to sink, just time. Chrysler's Marine division emerged in the 1960s, producing fiberglass boats, inboard-outboard engines, and even racing hydroplanes powered by Chrysler 318 and 440 V8s adapted for marine use. Their racing pinnacle, the Miss Chrysler Crew U77, used twin 426 cubic inch supercharged Hemi V8s, making it the only auto-powered unlimited hydroplane to win in APBA competition. However, Chrysler's marine gear carried significant danger. The high-output racing engines were extremely heavy and maintenance-intensive, prone to breakdowns mid-race. In consumer products, hulls and foam-filled flotation chambers often degraded rapidly. Early fiberglass construction was vulnerable to water intrusion and structural degradation, leaving boats weakened from within. In racing, the high speeds, pushing over 100 miles per hour in rough conditions, created life-threatening risks. During the chaotic 1966 President's Cup, multiple fatalities occurred in unlimited-class races, including crashes during events involving Miss Chrysler Crew, highlighting the danger of under-refined designs and marginal handling at extreme speeds. As Chrysler faced financial distress in the late 1970s, the Marine division was sold off by 1980 and the racing program quietly dissolved. The consumer line faded soon after. What remains are rare, aging hulls and engines, legacy vessels that, despite their allure, carried built-in risk due to power without refinement, fragility under stress, and marginal safety design. Before we move on, if you've ever considered buying a used boat, now's the time to hit that subscribe button. These aren't just old boats, they're floating liabilities, and what you'll see by the end of this list. One brand built boats so unstable they nearly capsized at the dock. Stick around, because the worst one is still coming. Imperial Boats looked like the deal of a lifetime, until you realized it could be the last boat you ever set foot in. Built in Markle, Indiana from the 1960s to the early 1990s, Imperial marketed itself as an affordable, stylish alternative for middle-class families. But beneath the shiny gel coat was a boat that was about as seaworthy as a soggy cardboard box. The danger started with the hull construction. Imperial often used thin fiberglass layups that flexed under pressure, leading to widespread stress cracking, especially around the transom and seating bases. These weren't harmless cosmetic flaws. Cracks in these areas could and did lead to structural failure in rough water, sometimes compromising the boat mid-ride. Imagine cruising at 30 knots and suddenly realizing the stern is flexing more than your uncle's knees on a jet ski. That's not character, it's a red flag. Even worse, the wood stringers inside many Imperial hulls were poorly sealed, allowing water to seep in and cause rot. Over time, the very skeleton of the boat would weaken from the inside out. Many owners only discovered the issue when a deck hatch collapsed or the motor mount started pulling out. At which point, you're not just looking at repairs, you're looking at catastrophic failure. The hardware didn't help either. Cleats ripped out, hatches leaked, and rails corroded, turning simple tasks like docking into safety hazards. And in saltwater, Imperial hulls aged like milk. Delamination was common, where the fiberglass layers literally separated from each other, causing soft spots that turned into sinking risks. By the early 1990s, as safety standards rose and more durable competitors emerged, Imperial couldn't keep up. Warranties were inconsistently honored, parts vanished, and the company folded without a trace. Today, if you see one for sale, it might look like a good deal, but underneath you could be buying a structurally compromised boat with a flair for self-destruction. Imperial wasn't just a bad boat, it was a dangerous one, and that's why it faded into US boating history. One cracked hull at a time. Maxim Boats launched in 1988 under Brunswick Corporation, meant to fill the gap between entry-level bayliner and premium sea ray. But while Maxim promised upscale entry, it delivered budget done badly. And some of its safety issues were more than annoying, they were unsafe. Multiple owner reports highlight hairline cracks in gelcoat and hull topsides, especially on late models. One 2009 model owner described cracks near swim platforms, rungs, and port windows, not due to collisions, but to thin fiberglass and poor lamination, all under normal use. More threads described deck stringers rotting under load, where fiberglass cracked and the wood inside had deteriorated, turning load areas into potential collapse zones. New boats themselves suffered critical leaks, like caulking gaps between hull and deck that allowed water into the engine compartment when reversing or stopping, flooding bilges and risking short circuits or hydrolock. One owner found power steering fluid spilling into the bilge, and another had a windshield seal failure, allowing rain to short the radio. Maxim never shook its reputation for poor fit and finish and unreliable assembly. In 2009, amid cost-cutting, Brunswick officially discontinued the brand. The hulls might still float, but often with hidden cracks, deck rot, and potentially catastrophic structural failures if you push them. Buying one is like walking a tightrope. Neat styling on top, but hazards lurking below. Celebrity Boats, built in Benton, Illinois, tried to blend flashy styling with affordability in the 1980s and early 90s. But while they looked good on the trailer, these boats were genuinely dangerous once they hit the water. The most notorious issue was rot-prone wood stringers. Factory workers reportedly used untreated plywood and pine beneath the seats and decks. One ex-owner wrote, "Their construction methods must have been deployed by 6th graders." This wasn't a one-off problem. Soft decks, transom flex, and stringer collapse became common within a few seasons. Structural rot weakened the hull's ability to handle engine torque or rough chop. Some boats literally cracked apart near the transom, putting passengers at serious risk. Combine that with cheap cleats, corroded rails, and leaky fittings, and you've got a boat that couldn't be trusted in an emergency. Wiring, often under-shielded, prone to shorts, and dangerously close to fuel lines in some builds. Deck hardware would loosen or rip out under strain. Fires, flooding, and sudden engine cutoffs were all part of the celebrity experience. By the mid-1990s, the brand collapsed under warranty claims, rot complaints, and an industry that had moved on. Today, a used celebrity may sparkle on the outside, but underneath, it's a splintering liability. Before Brunswick swept in with a corporate rescue in 1986, Bayliner was the fastest-growing boat brand in America, and also one of the most troubling. Founded by Orrin Edson, Bayliner Boats dominated the entry-level market in the 1970s and early 80s. But behind the low price tags and flashy brochures leaked a fleet of fiberglass time bombs. One of the most serious recalls came in 1982, when over 1,200 Bayliner Capris were flagged for ungrounded fuel fill pipes, creating a fire and explosion risk during refueling. Another recall targeted the Vic Yacht CMDB RG-27, which failed basic flotation and stability tests, a critical failure that could lead to capsizing in moderate chop. Even worse, numerous models had improper engine ventilation, exposed ignition wiring, and non-ignition protected electrical systems. That meant a buildup of gas fumes in the engine bay could turn a key turn into a full-blown bilge explosion, a terrifying, documented risk. These issues weren't rare, they were systemic. Bayliner boats from that era were built fast and cheap, and corners were cut in places that compromised core safety systems. By the mid-1980s, public trust was wavering, and Brunswick saw both a brand opportunity and a liability. When Brunswick bought Bayliner for $425 million in 1986, they overhauled production quality, safety standards, and dealer networks. Modern Bayliners are safer, better built, and highly regulated, but those pre-Brunswick hulls, they're still out there. If you find one sitting in a marina today, look closely, because that $5,000 deal might just be a fire hazard waiting to float. Quick reality check. If you're finding this list helpful, Smash that like button so more boaters see it before they make a dangerous mistake. And don't go anywhere, because coming up, we've got a boat so poorly engineered, owners reported the deck collapsing under their feet. Yep, just wait till you hear how that one got sold as family-friendly. Penan Boats, based in Penan, New York, switched from wooden to fiberglass boats by the early 1960s and remained active until around 2001. While generally praised for their handling and fishing utility, many models, especially fiberglass inboards and tunnel drive boats, also carried serious safety hazards that caused the brand to disappear from the US market. Longtime owners and restorers highlight a key issue: wood cord stringers and transoms with poorly finished weep holes, allowing moisture to seep in and never escape. Over time, that trapped water led to stringer rot, deck delamination, and even transom failure, turning otherwise seaworthy hulls into structural liabilities. One forum user wrote, "Water was able to rot out the stringers and eventually the transoms, turning what looked like a solid hull into a sinking risk." Another experienced boater warned that even carefully built Penans would inevitably suffer core issues. Moisture will eventually get into the stringers and will cause the boat to lose integrity. Owners dealing with older models frequently report decks so soft that finger pressure causes flex, engine mounts pulling loose, and sudden loss of structural stiffness when stressed. Penan gradually declined in the late 1990s and ceased production by around 2001. Largely because inspection repairs grew expensive, buyer confidence dropped, and support disappeared. What remains are well-loved hulls that, beneath the gloss, can conceal serious rot and failure. When moisture meets wood core, structure disappears over time. Sportcraft, a US builder best known for its 1970s to 1990s cabin cruisers and cuddy boats, earned a reputation for comfortable rides, but also a troubling track record for flooding and structural failures. Owners on the Whole Truth forum report that several Sportcraft models were engineered with flooded transoms or poorly drained cockpit configurations. This flawed design allowed water to build up behind the engine, even on calm water, creating a constant pressure wave toward the hull, a recipe for sudden bilge flooding or swamping. But that's not all. Many boats used poorly gaskets on access hatches, which let water seep directly into the stringer system. Combined with untreated or poorly sealed wooden cores, the result was rot-prone floors and decks that softened over time, compromising critical structure beneath your feet. Owners frequently noted soft spots, especially in the cockpit floor, and that simple rough chop conditions could visibly flex or crack parts of the hull grid. Repair projects on older models routinely involve cutting out entire transoms and reinforcing stringers, a sign that the original construction often failed under normal use. By the early 2000s, complaints about flooding, rotten floors, and poor drainage stacked up. The company slowly dissolved, disappearing by around 2010 with no successor or support. Today, some Sportcraft hulls still float, but many are hiding waterlogged interiors and structural weaknesses. If you're considering one, ask yourself, do you really want a potential sinking risk built in? Sportcraft didn't just fade, it flooded itself out of history. Steelcraft, based in West Haven, Connecticut, built welded steel cruisers starting in 1945, following WW2. For a time they were everywhere, strong industrial-grade boats promoted as virtually indestructible. But underneath that ironclad reputation, steel boats carried hidden dangers that ultimately sank the brand by the 1980s, with no survivors in the US market. Steel hulls may sound rugged, but owners reported several serious safety concerns. Reddit and boating forums warn that stray electrical current or worn insulation can lead to galvanic or stray current corrosion that burns through the hull quickly, often while the boat still looks solid outside. Electrical hazard risk. Steel conducts electricity. If wiring chafes or insulation fails, the hull can become energized, creating a risk of electric shock or fire, something fiberglass builders don't face. Weight penalty and handling instability. These boats were heavy. In rough water, some owners noted sluggish response and caution that speed-driven hulls lacked the nimbleness needed to avoid danger or crisis maneuvers. One Redditor starkly summarized, Despite mammoth initial production, 2,000 boats by 1948, Steelcraft faded completely by the late 1970s. Their promise of bulletproof lifetime steel hulls couldn't withstand ongoing corrosion challenges, electrical risks, and heavy, inefficient construction. Restoration hobbyists may still treasure them, but salty water and time have eaten at the unseen structure. Steelcraft boats may have looked invincible, but the steel that made them strong also made them dangerous. In the end, rust and design limitations sank the company. Rankin Boats, built in Charleston, South Carolina from the 1960s through the mid-1990s, was once a local staple, until the boating community gave them a nickname they couldn't shake: Stankin' Rankins. That wasn't just a jab at style, it was a warning. These boats may have floated out of the factory, but they didn't always stay afloat where it counted. Rankin boats were built fast and sold cheap, often using underpowered engines matched with overweight hulls, a combo that turned acceleration into a crawl and wave cutting into water plowing. Worse, many models were built with low-quality wood stringers that weren't properly sealed, allowing moisture to creep in and cause hidden rot. That rot wasn't cosmetic, it weakened transoms, decks, and motor mounts, setting the stage for catastrophic failure under load. Electrical systems were equally hit or miss. Some owners reported wiring not properly routed or shielded, leading to blown fuses and short circuits at sea. Bilge pumps frequently failed due to poor installation, leaving boats vulnerable to flooding in rough chop or at rest. As the brand fell apart in the mid-90s, so did support. The company closed in 1995 after a factory fire, and parts became impossible to source. Warranties gone. Service non-existent. Owners were left with boats they couldn't fix, couldn't sell, and in some cases couldn't trust offshore. What sank Rankin wasn't one scandal, it was 1,000 small failures. Weak construction, minimal support, and a long trail of duct tape repairs earned them their unfortunate nickname. Today, if you find one for sale, think twice. Some ghosts from boating's past don't stay dead, they just get listed cheap on Craigslist. Swirl's Striper series looked great on paper, a capable mid-tier fisherman's boat. In reality, these hulls carried hidden risks that made even calm waters treacherous if left unchecked. One harrowing design flaw: the deck scuppers drained directly into the bilge, not overboard. Owners described how water, fish guts, and debris collect inside, creating constant bilge flooding and encouraging corrosion and pump failure. That's not a minor design quirk. It's a slow leak into disaster. Electrical systems packed the next punch. Reports from BD Outdoors reveal that dash wiring and fuse blocks suffered from loose or corroded plugs, making bilge pumps or navigation gear unreliable, potentially leaving boats adrift with no power to bail or steer. Structural rot loomed beneath. On a 1998 Striper, one owner noted soft deck panels near access hatches. Plywood cores were rotting due to water intrusion, compromising material integrity before it became visible. Forum threads repeatedly highlighted that if moisture found its way into stringer systems via sandalwood hardware or unsealed fittings, it led to deck flex, engine mount failure, and severe weakening over time. By the late 2000s, Genmar's bankruptcy ended Swirl production, and the brand faded, leaving behind no support, no parts, and frequently hidden rot or electrical failures in aged boats. If you spot a Striper for sale, skip the shiny gel coat and head straight for the bilge, wiring harnesses, and stringers. That trusted fishing boat may contain a structural or electrical hazard that'll turn offshore calm into chaos. Now, if you're shopping for a used boat, don't be fooled by glossy gel coat or a shiny console. Some of these deals are hiding rotted stringers, dangerous wiring, or design flaws that could cost you far more than the purchase price. If you haven't found your answers, support the channel by clicking and subscribing. Always get a marine survey, ask the hard questions, and know the brand's history. Because, on the water, what you don't know can sink you. Stay sharp and boat safe, and if you're thinking of buying used, watch our next videos before you even step on board.